Hello and welcome back to Hilltop Stovetop, the show where we teach you how to make great meals in an ordinary kitchen. Today's episode is dedicated to the folks at Cassidy's Moving and Storage in Pembroke, who are the people who successfully moved me from Eganville to Winnipeg. And when we were chatting as the packing and the moving was happening, I mentioned about this YouTube channel, and the guys said, there's one thing truck drivers love, it's great food. And one special request was that they would like to make borscht. So today we are making borscht. And borscht, it's an Eastern European dish, translates as beet soup. And there's probably as many versions of it as there are small villages in Eastern Europe. But this is one way that I'm going to show you how to do it that is quick and easy, uses some pre-made things and some that you're going to be cooking yourself. It's also a dish that you have the option whether you make it a vegetarian dish or you add meat to it. Personally, I like meat in mine, but it's up to you. So we've already got a few things started here. I've got my beef is already pre-browned, and I've got some onions simmering in the pot. Now, if this pot looks like it's a little dirty, it's because I already did the beef in this same pot. And we did add a little bit of olive oil in with it. And then I've got a few other things that I'm going to add to it. I'm just going to turn that down a little bit so we don't burn our onions. I'm going to add a little bit of mushrooms to it. I've got grated carrot. I've got some grated cabbage. And I bought a package of this pre-made broccoli slaw, which has got shredded broccoli, carrots, and cabbage in it. Then my sister said that this is one of these soups that's really, it's a clean out the fridge soup. So we've added in some leftover cauliflower that I've chopped up. And of course, the star of the show is the beets. Now, I'm using canned beets, which are already diced. You can buy pre-cooked beets in the produce section that come in a vacuum sealed package. Or you can buy whole beets and roast them or boil them and skin them yourself and chop them yourself. Depends on how much work you want to put into it yourself. For seasoning, I've got, of course, sour cream. Got a little bit of flour to thicken it with. I've got some lemon juice to give it a tart flavor. And all important, you're going to have put some dill in there. Now for chopping all of this stuff, I did all the chopping in my food processor, but if you don't have one of those, a grater will do the job. So this is a box grater, comes in different sizes. Usually the large one would be what we would do for this. And then the other ingredient would be our stock. And I'm going to be using beef stock that comes already in a broth form like this. You could use something like our friend the Better Than Bouillon and just add water to it. You could use oxo, which is the powdered form of bouillon. Or if you really want to make life easy, you can just add a package of onion soup mix and add water to that. And if you want to make this vegetarian, so you're not putting in meat, then you just take something like this and use vegetable stock instead of beef stock. So let's give these onions a little bit of a stir here. That looks good. And now I'm going to add a little bit of stock just so that that's not so dry in the bottom there. And that'll help deglaze the bottom of the pan. And then I'm going to add in my mushrooms. So those are something that we want to have maybe a little bit of a browner color to them as we cook. And I can turn my temperature back up again. And this is actually quite a quick soup to make as well, because all the vegetables are so finely chopped. And if you're buying things pre-chopped, that makes it easier. right, we're back after about 2 or 3 minutes of our mushrooms and onions simmering, and you can see the moisture has come out of the mushrooms. I did add a splash more of the beef broth in there. And now I'm going to add in this ground beef. If you didn't have ground beef, it's a great way to use up some leftover roast beef. Just chop it really, really, really fine. Or some ground beef, or like I say, if you want to go vegetarian, you don't have to do this part at all. And then we're going to add in the carrots. I've got all the wrong utensils here in my hand. Carrots. Now the cabbage is kind of mixed in with a little bit of carrot because I put the carrots in through the food processor first and then the cabbage after. Then I'll add our broccoli slaw, which has got some red cabbage as well as green cabbage in it. Borscht is really nice, I think, if you've got red cabbage to add to it, but I didn't happen to have any. Our leftover cauliflower. And the volume of soup that you make is going to be dependent on the amount of vegetables and so on that you add to it. Now we're going to, all important, it wouldn't be borscht if we didn't have this. We're going to add in the beets. And we were actually kind of surprised when we opened up these cans, because I remember as a kid, cans of beets would be filled to the top with liquid, but however they process them now, they don't waste as much space or as much weight with liquid. Okay, and then we're going to add in the rest of the beef broth or vegetable broth if you're making it vegetarian. And so that was about half of I think these are 900 milliliters, so I was about half a liter in that one, and this one is a full one. I'd already been using that one for another recipe. And of course you want your liquid to come up higher than what your vegetables are. Now, depending on the type of cooking you're doing, some people wouldn't put nearly this amount of vegetables in it. Sometimes it would be really just onions and beets and a little bit of beef broth. My grandmother used to make it with a can of consomme soup and a can of beets and just a little bit of vegetables in it. I happen to like a lot of vegetables, but I am going to add some more liquid to that. Now we're going to get a lot of flavor from these vegetables, so we might not need to add too much more. But when I taste it after the vegetables have cooked down a little bit, if it seems like it's a little bit boring, I can add a spoonful of that Better Than Bouillon or a little bit of the OXO powder just to give it an extra kick. But you see already we've got that nice red color from the beets, even though the beets are a relatively small bit of the vegetable portion in this. So now we're going to let this simmer for about 10 minutes or 10 or 15 minutes or so till those vegetables soften, and then we'll come back and give it a taste and see how it works. See you soon. Coco, where's the good girl? Come here. Hey, are you enjoying this? Say hello to the people. Say hello, people. Yes. That's a good girl. Good girl. All right, so we're about 15 minutes into our soup simmering here. We turned it up a little bit. I did add a little bit more water to it because there wasn't quite enough liquid to vegetable ratio. And you can see that the cabbage and so on is starting to soften up a little bit. So now we're going to give it a taste, because now is the time that we want to start adding some seasoning to this, because we've added a lot of water, and but I didn't want to do it too soon until we'd had a chance for the flavor to come out of the vegetables. So much the same as when I made the chicken soup a few episodes ago. Right now it's a little bit boring. So we're going to do a few things. We're going to add some salt. And this is a special shout out to my nephew, the chef, who says use the finger pinch technique. I can't even say it. And we're going to add some pepper. But the other thing I noticed when I tasted that is it was a little watery. So I am going to add a little bit more of this bouillon, just a hair more. Add that into the mix. And while that is stirring in, a couple of other things recommended for this. We want to add just a little bit of sugar to pull out some of the flavors out of the vegetables. I'm just going to add maybe about 1.5 teaspoons of sugar to that big pot. Critical thing for borscht is we have to add dill. Now I don't happen to have any fresh dill, but I do have this freeze-dried dill. If it was summertime and I had fresh dill, I would certainly do that, but be generous with that dill. That's going to be wonderful in this. You can even save a little bit of that and put a sprinkle of it on top of your bowl when you're ready to serve it. Okay. Have another taste and see what that did to it. Oh yeah, that's much better, much better. So the last thing we're going to do is we are going to add something to give it a little tartness, and that's a little bit of lemon juice. Now, one thing that sometimes lemon juice works. If you don't have lemon juice, some vinegar would work. I like to add a little rice vinegar. But something that's going to give it a little tartness to go with that sweetness of the sugar that we added. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of sour cream to the borscht itself. So I've got just a little bit here, like maybe a little more than 1/4 cup. And I'm also going to add some flour to that. And if you don't want to use gluten, you can use potato flour or something. And by mixing the flour and the sour cream together, that's going to keep the sour cream from separating, but it's also going to keep your flour from getting lumpy. And the flour is going to help to just thicken up that broth just a hair. And I think I'm going to add, I miscalculated there, a little too, oh, I am having trouble with this door today. And mixing the flour with the sour cream is much the same as adding the flour and the butter together to make a roux, which is what we did when we made the cream sauce for the macaroni and cheese. Ooh, this is lumpier than I would have liked. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of the hot liquid to this before I add the sour cream straight in. And that's another thing that's going to keep it from curdling. We don't want any curdling happening. If we just added the cold sour cream to that hot liquid, it would be like it cooked all at once. And that's not what we want to have happen. Alrighty, so we'll give that a pour, and that's going to add make it a kind of a pink soup. Again, this is one of these things that varies from recipe to recipe. And then we're going to have one last taste. Hopefully, this is the last taste. Oh, you know what we forgot? We forgot the garlic. How can we be making this without garlic? Okay, so this is why it's really important to have a taste, and thank goodness we have this already pre-chopped garlic in the fridge, because we're going to give this a goodly whack of garlic, I think. You know how you taste something and you know it's just missing something. If I'd really been thinking about it, I would have added it at the beginning with the onions and the mushrooms, but I'll give this a whirl. Oh, now we're talking. Okay, perfect. So now we're going to take our lovely soup bowl here, the ladle. I'm just going to see how many utensils I can make dirty all at once. A little bit of this, and then of course with borscht you want to have a little bit of sour cream to the top. And we're going to drop that in and just give our spoon a little twist as it comes out to make a little cute little design on the top. And then we'll take a little, just a pinch of the dill, sprinkle it from a height. And there we have it, folks. Homemade borscht in under half an hour. So thank you for joining us here on Hilltop Stovetop. Hope you enjoyed today's episode and that you'll remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And we'll be seeing you again soon. And thanks again to Cassidy's Moving and Storage. That was great. Bye now.